Hey everyone, welcome to another rapid fire review, this time for the remastered release of Like a Dragon Ishin. Ishin is an offshoot of the main storyline, and it's set back in the Edo period of Japan, where Western culture and guns arrive. It's causing turmoil, violence, and potential civil war. We play as Sakamoto Ryoma, who must decide who to remain loyal to, a slain father figure whose goal was to eliminate the rigid social class system, or his brother, who has all of Japan's future in mind. Sakamoto Ryoma was an actual historical figure of the period, as are many of the other characters in the game. They play pretty loosey-goosey with the specific historical details, but it's interesting to see the game's artistic interpretation of the period and politics. Our protagonist and many of the characters in Inshin use character models from previous games, which just adds to the experience. It's great seeing familiar faces in this period piece, and honestly, having Kiryu be our main character went a long way into buying some of the soap opera bullshit he spit out over the course of the game. The story for Inshin is pretty standard stuff for a Yakuza game. It's a massive soap opera, this time with a major historical backbone. It's filled with twists and turns, love stories, arms deals, betrayal, secret identities, and assassination plots. If you like Yakuza games, or soap operas in general, you'll feel right at home with Inshin. As always, it's pulpy. It's sensational, often awkward, and absolutely unbelievable in a things-are-much-larger-than-life sort of way. I did have some bigger issues with dialogue in Inshin than I've had before. I've always found the dialogue in Yakuza games to be a bit repetitive. The protagonists sometimes need to be told 3, 4, 5 times what the plan is or who the bad guys truly are before they get it. No. I also hate when they're like, hey, you know what you just played? It's like, yeah, I just played it. And they're like, I'm going to summarize it for you. It's like, please don't. It's a core aspect of this type of protagonist, and sometimes our heroes are just lovable dimwits. But Ryoma doesn't appear to be that dumb. Towards the end, I found myself skipping a ton of voice lines and just simply reading the dialogue because I was so damn tired of people explaining to me what was going on. Even the ragged, dying breaths of friends and enemies were turned into long, Henry VI-style soliloquies. Who killed them, why they did it, when they did it, what they were eating when they did it, what they wanted Ryoma to change about the political climate of Japan after they were gone, and so on. People just did not want to stop talking. After making our choices and moving on with our allies, the story finishes up, and we as the protagonists, of course, are victorious. But something curious happens. The game just kept going, and then after that it just kept going. And I thought it ended again, but we got what felt like an hour more of cutscenes, and it just kept going. It felt like padding was being added to an interesting and already sufficiently long story, like they felt we hadn't got our money's worth or something. On the gameplay side, there's much to discuss. The world itself is fairly interesting and filled with things to do. It's a redone game from 2014, so in terms of layout and graphics, there isn't much here to be impressed by, but there's still quite a bit to explore. Now, it wouldn't be a Yakuza game without the minigames, and there's plenty here to get lost in. Weapons training, fishing, cooking, wood chopping, karaoke, of course, geisha games, fan dancing, and chicken racing provide virtue, skills, money, and crafting material, and sometimes just a needed break from the relentless cutscenes.
Well, I'm getting distracted with the bag. You can't distract me like that. That's fucking cheating.
I got hooked early on chicken racing, which was fortunate as I was able to develop a nice nest egg and buy almost everything I can get my hands on early in the game. There are also 70 plus side quests, of course with wildly varying quality and depth. People impersonate gods, horny women demand your cucumber, there's bear sightings, secret tomato black markets, love potions, all sorts of weird stuff that's worth checking out. I'm not one to tell people how to enjoy their games, but honestly, if you're trying to give this game, or the series in general, a fair shake, you have to treat many, if not most, of these quests as mandatory. Not just for the items that you get, but what makes these games special, for me at least, is the chance to sit down and eat some sushi, buy a farm, grow some daikon, and take a little break from overthrowing the government and assassinating former friends. For gear and progression, there's a full crafting system, fortunately with updated UIs from the original release. I always appreciate being able to go off and quest or spelunk to get rare crafting materials or get powerful weapons and armor, perhaps a bit earlier than I should have them, and this game allows a bit of that. Unfortunately, the dungeons of this game are absolute ass. There's brown corridors with some bad guys, you find the switches, you hope the direction arrow isn't pointing you into the wrong brown corridor, and you repeat that over and over, with a boss at the end sometimes. There are worthwhile crafting mats to farm, but it felt bad every single time I went into one. Now let's discuss combat. Look, this is a Yakuza game, and none of us should have expected genre-defining combat, and we didn't get it. There are 4 styles of combat within Inshin, each with their own skill tree. The Brawler, Swordsman, Gunslinger, and Wild Dancer, each offering a fairly unique playstyle. The Brawler plays out pretty much exactly how you would think, the same with the Swordsman. They're functional combat systems with blocking, special attacks, and combos. The Gunslinger, on the other hand, makes absolutely no sense. You have infinite ammo, with no reloading, so you can just stand there and shoot for as long as there are enemies. The swordplay is only okay. And so if the swordplay is only okay, then there's a lot of these, like, useless trash enemies that you just kind of skip. There are downsides for the style, or what are supposed to be downsides. Up close, you're vulnerable. Sometimes enemies have armor that bolts don't really break through, or that enemies can simply infinitely block bullets. But in reality, the AI just stands back, just stays put while getting shot. So you can kill a few dozen of them before one walks forward, and you can simply knock him down and keep firing on everyone else. You also have fairly predictable knockdowns and knockbacks, and even have armor shredding rounds for bosses. Even enemies who block bullets most of the time can simply be sidestepped, including bosses, and then you can continue with the pew 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 stuff. I would absolutely avoid, or at least limit gun use when you play this game. It takes away so much more than it adds. I think this game is at its best when you're punching people or using a sword, and guns just need to stay away from the series if this is what we're going to get. The Trooper card system is one bright spot in the combat. They made the system always available in the remake, which was the perfect choice. They're selecting training, combining forces for different abilities, provided not only variety but some excitement to an otherwise dated combat system. Now for the hard part. Yakuza games are a nightmare to give scores to. Giving scores to individual components and just doing the math doesn't work here for me. The story is historically significant and interesting, but has criminally repetitive dialogue and too goddamn many cutscenes, and the ending absolutely drags ass. The combat is dated at best with swords and brawler, and it's far worse when you include the guns. The real star of the game, though, are the side quests, the characters, voice acting, and minigames. This is what makes the game special. I'm giving Like a Dragon Inshin a 7 out of 10, the good game score. My issues with combat and how the story unfolds drop it the 1 point below Yakuza 0's score, but I definitely think it's worth checking out. Thanks so much for sticking with me to the end of this rapid fire review, and we shall see you on the next Angry Joe Show.